Some artifacts just refuse to play by the rules. They're the kind of objects that, when you first see them, make the hairs on your arm stand up. They whisper stories that history books have long forgotten. The Piri Reis Map is one of those objects. Discovered in 1929 in a dusty corner of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, this piece of gazelle skin parchment immediately created a firestorm of questions. It wasn't just an old map, it was a map that seemed to show things no one in the 16th century should have known. It's a cartographic ghost, a puzzle that has haunted historians, scientists, and adventurers for nearly a century. This isn't just about lines on a page, it's about a potential crack in our understanding of the past. Imagine you're an explorer. You live for these moments. You find a document that rewrites the story. That's what happened here. The map was drawn in 1513, just 2 decades after Columbus first sailed the ocean blue. Yet it depicts the coastlines of South America and Africa with a level of accuracy that seems, for its time, utterly impossible. How could a cartographer in the early 1500s have known the precise longitudinal placement of these continents? It's a question that opens a Pandora's box of possibilities. Was it a lucky guess? Or was Piri Reis, the Ottoman admiral who created it, tapping into a source of knowledge far older and more advanced than his own time? The mystery begins here, with this impossible piece of parchment. The allure of the map isn't just academic, it's deeply personal. It speaks to that part of us that wants to believe there's more to the story. We're taught a very neat, linear version of history. First this happened, then that happened. But objects like the Piri Reis Map throw a wrench in the gears. They suggest that history might be messier, more complex, and infinitely more mysterious than we ever imagined. It's a tangible link to a world of lost knowledge, a world where ancient mariners might have charted the globe long before the age of discovery. This map is more than an artifact. It's a gateway to 1,000 unanswered questions about who we are and where we came from. So, buckle up. We're about to dive deep into the world of Piri Reis. This isn't just a story about cartography. It's a real-life expedition into the unknown. We'll explore the admiral himself, a man of both the sea and the library. We'll trace the lines on his map that have baffled experts for generations. We will weigh the wild theories of ancient super-civilizations against the more grounded explanations of mainstream science. The truth, as it often is, might be somewhere in the middle. But one thing is for sure, the journey to find it is what makes this map one of the most fascinating objects on the planet. This is a quest for a lost chapter of human history. To understand the map, you first have to understand the man behind it. His name was Ahmed Muhyiddin Piri, but we know him as Piri Reis. The title Reis means admiral in Turkish, and he earned it. Living from about 1465 to 1553, he was a legendary figure in the Ottoman Empire, a seasoned privateer, a brilliant naval commander, and a master cartographer. This wasn't some scholar locked away in a tower. Piri Reis was a man of action. He spent his life on the high seas, battling fleets in the Mediterranean and charting the coastlines of distant lands. He was a product of a world that was rapidly expanding, a world where every voyage west brought back news of a new world. Piri Reis wasn't just a sailor, he was a scholar of the sea. In 1521, he compiled his knowledge into a book called the Kitab-i-Bahriye, or Book of Navigation. This was a mariner's Bible filled with incredibly detailed charts, port information, and sailing instructions for the Mediterranean. It proved he was a meticulous researcher and a keen observer. But his most famous work, the 1513 map, was different. On the map itself, Piri Reis left notes explaining his methods. He claimed his map wasn't based on his own explorations alone. Instead, he said he compiled it from about 20 different source maps, some ancient and some from his own time, including a map supposedly drawn by Christopher Columbus himself. This is where the story takes a fascinating turn. According to his own words, some of his source maps were ancient. He wrote that some dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. Think about that, a 16th century admiral claiming to possess charts from the 4th century BCE. Where did he get them? One popular theory points to the Imperial Library of Constantinople. When the city fell to the Ottomans in 1453, its vast libraries, repositories of knowledge from the Roman and Byzantine empires, were absorbed. It's possible that Piri Reis, as a high-ranking admiral, had access to ancient charts that had been lost to the Western world for centuries. He was a collector of secrets. This idea of a hidden library of knowledge is intoxicating. It paints Piri Reis not just as a mapmaker but as a detective. He was piecing together a puzzle from fragments of a forgotten past. He mentions a map captured from a Spanish sailor who had sailed with Columbus on 3 voyages. This Columbus map has never been found, adding another layer of mystery. Piri Reis was at the crossroads of history, a place where old knowledge met new discoveries. He was synthesizing information from legendary sources, creating something that was both a product of its time and perhaps a window into a time long before. His map wasn't just drawn, it was curated from the lost archives of the world. Let's unroll the map itself. What do we actually see? The surviving piece is only a fragment, perhaps 1/3 or 1/2 of a larger world map. What remains is stunning. It shows the Atlantic Ocean with startling clarity. On the east, you can clearly see the coasts of Spain, Portugal, and West Africa. On the west, the eastern coast of South America is depicted in remarkable detail. Rivers like the Amazon are marked. The coastline snakes southward, showing features that European explorers wouldn't officially discover or chart for many more years. It's a snapshot of the New World at a time when it was still very, very new to Europeans. The map's projection is also a major point of debate. It doesn't use the familiar Mercator projection we see in classrooms today. Instead, it appears to be centered on a point near modern-day Cairo, with the world radiating outward. This is a sophisticated geometric technique. Some analysts have argued that it looks like a map projected onto a sphere and then flattened, a method that requires an understanding of spherical trigonometry. This level of mathematical skill wasn't common among European cartographers in 1513. It suggests the source maps Piri Reis used were created by people with a very advanced knowledge of geography and mathematics. The map feels ahead of its time, but it's the southern portion of the map that really grabs your attention. Below the tip of South America, the coastline continues to curve eastward. It depicts a landmass where we now know Antarctica lies. But here's the kicker. This coastline is detailed. It shows bays, peninsulas, and possibly even mountain ranges. This is not just some vague blob labeled Terra Australis Incognita, which was common on maps from this era. This is a specific charted coastline, and it connects directly to the coast of South America, suggesting a time before the Drake Passage opened up and separated the 2 continents. This southern landmass is the heart of the enigma. It is the single most controversial feature on the entire map. Mainstream history tells us that Antarctica was not even sighted until 1820, over 300 years after Piri Reis drew his map. And even then, it was just a glimpse of a frozen wasteland. The continent's actual subglacial coastline, the land beneath the ice, wasn't mapped until the 20th century using modern seismic sounding equipment. So how, in 1513, did a Turkish admiral draw a detailed coastline of a continent that was not only undiscovered but also buried under miles of ice? This is the question that turns a historical curiosity into a profound mystery. The debate exploded in 1956. That's when a man named Captain Arlington H. Mallory, a retired United States Navy hydrographic engineer and amateur archaeologist, took a long, hard look at the map. Mallory was an expert in ancient maps. He proposed a shocking theory. He claimed that the southern landmass on the Piri Reis map was not a poorly drawn South America, as some had suggested. Instead, he argued it was an incredibly accurate depiction of the coast of Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. But here's the bombshell. He said it showed the coastline before it was covered by ice. He believed he was looking at a map of a prehistoric ice-free Antarctica. This idea sent shockwaves through the academic world and captured the public imagination. Geologists confirm that Antarctica hasn't been ice-free for millions of years. The last time the coast of Queen Maud Land was not covered by a massive ice sheet was at least 6,000 years ago, and some estimates push that date back much, much further. So if Mallory was right, it meant that someone had the technology and the ability to accurately chart the Antarctic continent, thousands of years before the first known civilizations in Egypt or Sumeria even existed. This is a paradigm-shifting claim. It suggests a lost chapter of human history, a seafaring civilization with global reach in the distant past. To support his claim, Mallory and his supporters pointed to specific similarities. They compared the coastline on the Piri Reis map to modern seismic profiles of the land hidden beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. They found correlations. bays and inlets on the ancient map seem to line up with subglacial valleys and fjords revealed by 20th century technology. The idea was tantalizing. Could Piri Reis have had a copy of a map made by an ancient unknown civilization of master mariners? A people who saw Antarctica when it was a green and temperate land, and who possessed the skills to map it with precision? This theory opens up a world of speculation. Of course, this raises a huge question. Who were these ancient mapmakers? If a civilization existed that was advanced enough to map Antarctica 6,000 years ago or more, where is the other evidence? Where are their cities, their tools, their writings? The absence of this evidence is the biggest hurdle for proponents of this theory. Yet, the map remains. It sits there, a silent witness. It presents us with an uncomfortable choice. Either Piri Reis made an incredibly lucky and detailed series of guesses, or he had access to information that, according to our current understanding of history, simply should not exist. The Antarctic enigma is what makes this map legendary. When you have a mystery this big, the theories are going to get wild, and I love it. The most popular explanation for the map's impossible knowledge is the existence of a lost, prehistoric civilization. This isn't just about a few skilled sailors. This theory proposes a full-blown, technologically advanced society that flourished thousands of years ago. A civilization with global reach, capable of sophisticated mathematics, astronomy, and worldwide cartography. They mapped the entire planet, including Antarctica when it was free of ice, and then, for some reason, they vanished. All that remains are fragments of their knowledge, passed down through the ages until a piece landed in Piri Reis's hands. This idea immediately brings to mind the most famous lost civilization of all, Atlantis. The story, first told by the Greek philosopher Plato, describes a powerful and advanced island nation that sank into the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. For centuries, people have searched for evidence of Atlantis. Proponents of this theory suggest that the Atlanteans were the master mariners who created the original source maps. Perhaps they were a global seafaring empire and their knowledge of world geography was unparalleled. The Piri Reis Map, in this view, is a surviving relic of their lost world, a ghostly echo of their cartographic genius. Another, slightly less dramatic theory still relies on ancient mariners, but not necessarily a high-tech civilization. This idea suggests that prehistoric people were far better sailors than we give them credit for. Perhaps seafaring cultures from thousands of years ago, before the last ice age even, managed to travel vast distances. They might not have had chrome-plated flying machines, but they might have had incredible navigational skills based on stars, currents, and deep generational knowledge. They could have passed this information down through oral traditions and primitive charts, which were copied and recopied over millennia, eventually finding their way to the great libraries of Alexandria or Constantinople. The concept of a lost library of Alexandria of maps is also compelling. We know that this ancient library was a center of learning for the entire known world. It's said to have housed hundreds of thousands of scrolls. What priceless knowledge was lost when it burned? Could it have contained a comprehensive world atlas compiled from countless sailors' reports over centuries? Perhaps the source maps Piri Reis used were copies of maps that survived the library's destruction. He wasn't looking at one ancient map, but a composite of knowledge saved from the brink of oblivion. This version of the story is a tribute to the librarians and scholars who tried to preserve knowledge against all odds. Now, every good expedition needs a skeptic. It's important to ground ourselves and look at the more conventional explanations. Mainstream historians and cartographers have a very different take on the Piri Reis Map. They argue that the so-called Antarctic coastline is not Antarctica at all. Instead, they believe it's simply the coast of South America, which Piri Reis, working with limited and conflicting information, distorted and bent eastward to fit onto the available piece of parchment. It's an easy mistake to make when you're trying to draw a massive curved continent on a small flat surface without a complete picture. The skeptics point out numerous errors on the map that get less attention than the Antarctic part. For example, the Caribbean is depicted quite strangely, and many islands are missing or misplaced. South America itself is connected to the southern landmass, which we know is incorrect. If the map were truly from a hyper-advanced ancient source, wouldn't it be perfect? These errors, they argue, are exactly the kinds of mistakes you'd expect from a 16th century cartographer who was piecing together information from sailors' rumors, crude charts, and his own imagination. He was doing his best with the data he had, and that data was flawed and incomplete. What about the uncanny accuracy of the coastline? Geographers have pushed back on this as well. They argue that the similarities between the Piri Reis Map and the subglacial coast of Antarctica are a classic case of pattern recognition, or pareidolia. That's our tendency to see meaningful shapes in random patterns, like seeing animals in clouds. Critics say that if you look hard enough, you can find apparent matches between any two vaguely similar coastlines. They argue the resemblances are exaggerated and that many features don't match up at all. It's a coincidence, they say, not evidence of a lost civilization. Finally, the mainstream explanation for the southern landmass is that it's a representation of Terra Australis Incognita, the legendary Great Southern Continent that many ancient Greeks and Renaissance cartographers believed must exist to balance the landmasses of the Northern Hemisphere. It was a theoretical idea, not a charted reality. According to this view, Piri Reis wasn't drawing a real place he had a map for. He was simply following a cartographic tradition of the time by including a hypothetical southern land. The details he added were likely creative flourishes or misinterpretations of the South American coast. It's a less exciting theory for sure, but it's one grounded in the historical context of 16th century mapmaking. Regardless of whether you land on the side of lost civilizations or scholarly skepticism, you can't deny the map's powerful hold on our imagination. It's more than just a geographical document, it's a cultural touchstone. The map acts as a screen onto which we project our deepest hopes and fears about the past. Do we come from a long, slow, steady climb from primitive beginnings? Or is our history a story of dramatic peaks and valleys, of great civilizations that rose to incredible heights only to be lost to time and catastrophe? The Piri Reis Map forces us to confront these questions head-on. It's a Rorschach test for our view of human history. The story of the map connects directly to one of humanity's most enduring myths, the myth of a lost golden age. Almost every culture has a story about a time in the distant past when people were wiser, more advanced, or lived in harmony with the world. Think of Eden, Atlantis, or Shambhala. The idea that Piri Reis had access to maps from such an era is incredibly appealing. It suggests that we are not the pinnacle of creation, but perhaps the forgetful heirs of a much greater legacy. It hints that there is profound knowledge waiting to be rediscovered, secrets that could change everything we think we know about ourselves. This map is a testament to our fascination with the unknown. As an explorer, I know this feeling well. It's the drive to look at the blank spaces on the map and ask, what's there? The Piri Reis Map is a blank space of a different kind, a blank space in our historical timeline. The possibility that an ancient civilization charted Antarctica fuels a sense of wonder. It turns history from a dry collection of facts into a thrilling mystery story. It gives us permission to imagine, to speculate, and to dream about what might have been. It makes the past feel alive, dynamic, and full of secrets still waiting to be unearthed. Ultimately, the emotional appeal of the map lies in its challenge to authority. It's a piece of evidence that seems to contradict the official story. In a world where we are often told to accept the experts' consensus, the Piri Reis Map stands as a symbol of defiance. It encourages us to ask questions, to doubt the established narrative, and to search for our own answers. It represents the spirit of exploration itself, the belief that there is always more to discover, that the next great find could be hiding in plain sight, tucked away in an old palace library, just waiting for someone to look closer and ask the right questions. So, what is the Piri Reis Map? After all the analysis, all the theories, and all the debate, we are left with an object that is part artifact, part myth. It is, without a doubt, a genuine 16th century cartographic masterpiece. It is a testament to the skill of Piri Reis and the expanding worldview of the Age of Discovery. It's a priceless historical document that gives us a glimpse into the mind of a Renaissance-era admiral, a man piecing together the known world from a patchwork of sources. This is its undeniable reality. It is a treasure of history, a physical link to a pivotal moment in our past. But it is also a myth. It has become a legend, a story we tell to express our wonder about the deep past. The myth of the map is the story of ancient astronauts, of Atlantean mapmakers, of a forgotten global civilization. This myth isn't about provable facts, it's about possibilities. It's a story that captures our imagination because it speaks to the fragility of knowledge. It reminds us that libraries can burn, civilizations can fall, and entire chapters of our history can be erased by time and ice. The map is a haunting reminder that what we know is just a fraction of what has been known before. The map's true legacy may not lie in its answer, but in its question. It forces us to keep asking, what if? What if we are wrong about the past? What if our ancestors were capable of more than we ever dreamed? These are the questions that fuel exploration and discovery. They push us to dig deeper, to look closer, and to challenge our own assumptions. The map doesn't need to be proof of Atlantis to be valuable. Its value lies in its ability to inspire curiosity, to make us look at the world with fresh eyes and wonder what other secrets are buried just beneath the surface, waiting for their moment to be rediscovered. In the end, the Piri Reis Map remains an unsolved case. It hangs in that perfect, tantalizing space between what we know and what we can imagine. It is both a product of its time and seemingly a messenger from a time long lost. Whether you see a cartographic error or a window into a prehistoric world, its power is undeniable. It teaches us that history is not a closed book. There are still mysteries to solve, expeditions to be mounted, and incredible discoveries to be made. The map is a call to adventure, an invitation to keep searching for the truth no matter where it leads. And that is a journey that is always worth taking.